Hello, everyone. How are you? And welcome to another episode of Real PR with me, Fiona Scott. I hope you're having a great afternoon. Here in sunny Swindon in the UK, it's marginally sunny. There is some blue sky around. It's blooming freezing though. Or as we'd say in the West Country, bit nippy. How are you? I hope you've had a good week, a good month since I last spoke to you. Today, I've got a really wonderful guest, and you've seen some of his work. You probably won't have realised it, but you've seen it not only here on Real PR, but you will have seen it over the last 3 years on my podcast, because joining me today is, and I'm going to use the word my cartoonist, but you can share him as well if you want to, the wonderful and glorious Morgan Gleave. Well, hi, Morgan. Hi.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure.
Introduce yourself in your own words to anyone who's watching this either live or on catch up.
Goodness. In my own words, I'm a cartoon evangelist, I think, because I've been reading comics and cartoons my whole life. And I think I've been making them most of my life as well. So it's just something that I absolutely love doing. I have to draw every day. So, and I love doing it. I love doing it for myself because I write my own stories and so on, but I love doing it for other people because that's the nicest way to get your stuff out there. And when you see how people react to your art, that for me, that's number one. It's tops. Yeah.
I remember, Morgan, when we first met, because you'd done some work with a client and mutual friend of ours, Taz Thornton.
Yeah.
And so when I contacted you and asked you about the podcast, talk us through your creative process. Use me as an example.
Okay. So, I mean, more often than not, I prefer the process to start with like a nice chat to start off with, because I like to get to know the person that I'm working with, what their sort of vibe is, what their kind of energy is. So I have a nice chat first, and obviously I take loads of notes. This is part of my autistic self that I keep being reminded of. I have to take a lot of notes when I meet people, so I can work out how I'm going to do, and then I'll start sketching from there. And usually the first sort of proper visual interaction I have with my clients is that I will send sketches through to see what they think and if it's going in the right direction. As with you had, I think, was it 5 or 6 we did originally? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I sketched everything out, sent them over to you to see what you think. I think there were a few alterations, but most of it went through straight away. So then we just turn those into illustrations that you could use wherever you needed to. And most of the stuff that I've done for you more recently has been digital, but I think the first batch it was all done by hand, because even though I use computers a lot in my work, I'm very much a traditionalist in my medium. So I do a lot with brush and ink and a lot with pencil, crayon and painting. So yeah, that's kind of it. I start off with a bit of a chat, take notes, get to know the person, and then start sketching, and then we take it from there.
Do you know, one of the things I loved was receiving the originals, which you were kind enough to send me. And I've still got them in my office. I look at them every day. But the one thing I thought when it came back, I remember saying this to you, is that your original drawings made me a lot slimmer than I actually am in real life. And I did talk to you about that, didn't I?
You did.
Yeah. Although in my head I'm still that slim, I just felt that it had, although it's a bit of fun, and it was showing me in a sort of a quirkier way to donate, you know, this is my YouTube content, or this is my podcast, and it's free and anyone can access it. And there's a big element of fun and silliness and chatting, and it's relaxed, less businesslike. And I think cartoons did that brilliantly. I still wanted it to be authentic to who I am now in my 50s. So did you get that, Morgan? That's what I was trying to do.
I think I did. Yeah. I mean, with my cartoons, I'm not one of those artists who does like photorealistic artwork. So, but I get the personality of the person I'm working with. And I think once we chatted, because obviously we had met by that time, I think.
Yeah.
So we'd met face to face and had a chat. So we got to know each other a lot better. And what I seem to be able to do is I capture people's personalities. There is obviously more than a passing resemblance, which is quite handy when I'm drawing somebody. But yeah, what I try to get across is I try to get the people's personality and their energies across, which seems to do. And I have great fun doing that. And I know people enjoy seeing them as well. So yeah.
And you do have quite a style, Morgan, don't you? You've been kind enough to do cartoons for another client of mine, which will be a story all in due course, as you know, where I could see the similarities between mine and his, but he also had his own distinct personality.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, as I say, I've been drawing my whole life, and I think all artists take a while to find their style, to find their stride. I feel like it's been within the last 5 years, I'd say, I've really hit what is my style. And it's kind of a mix of Eastern and Western influences. I'm very much influenced by sort of the big comics of DC and Marvel and so on. But I also love Japanese comics and animation. And there's a lot of hints of that style of artwork, which is quite different to what you would see, what you'd term the normal Marvel kind of comic style, which is obviously very sort of square jawed, all that kind of thing. The Japanese style, it's much more expressive, and I think that's why I've latched onto it so much. I'm very fortunate that I do a couple of hours a week in a comic shop, so it's a bit like my dream job. I love doing that alongside doing all the cartoons for everyone, and I've been kind of re-educated on the Eastern side of things, on Japanese stuff, which is just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, it kind of I've got a blend of a bit of everything in my style, really. Yeah.
So take us back in time then, Morgan. What are your first memories of liking, reading, or engaging with comics?
I would say I was probably about 4, and this was a time when more people smoked. So my dad used to go and buy his tobacco for a whole week from your local tobacconist in Leicester, my hometown. And they would have Marvel comics in there. And if I'd been good, because we didn't have pocket money at that time, but if I'd been good, I'd have a comic bought for me. So, for some reason, I can always remember reading the Planet of the Apes. There was a comic book version of the TV series. So I think the TV series was out by then. So yeah, my treat for the week, if I'd been good, was a comic, and I just latched onto them straight away. There was just something about the way the stories were told, and because both of my parents and my step parents are creative or were creative, we were encouraged as very small people to draw and to write stories and stuff like that. So it's just it's literally been, I feel like it's been from birth almost. I've been surrounded by art from tiny, and comics is just something that I latched onto very early on, and I turned into a serious collector about 10 years later, and it's kind of never gone away, really. So now the icing on the cake that I have my little couple of hours a week in a comic shop is quite bad, because they let us get, obviously you can get comics at a better rate, shall we say. Which is good and bad in equal measures, but I love being surrounded by it. You can imagine it's like being in it's like the kid in the candy shop. It very much, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I love it because I've been around comics my whole life. I've got a very good working knowledge of how comics actually work, who the artists are, who the writers are. And the best part of that job is when people come up and they ask for recommendations. And I absolutely love being able to do that. That's really great. I had some parents come in about a month or so ago, and they were looking for some manga, which is the Japanese comics, for their son, but they didn't really know what to get him. And I said, well, what does he like? And they sort of, as chatting with a client, chatting with you, finding out what that kid liked, and then tapped into that and said, recommended stuff for them. And they were so chuffed that they'd had someone that could take the time to do that. So yeah, comics is just something I've just it feels like it's been there forever for me, to be honest. Yeah.
And share with us then, Morgan, how old are you now? And how much, do you love comics more than ever? Has it just got stronger over the years? And I guess what I want to ask you is, how can business owners use or
Mhm.
embrace this type of art form?
Right. Okay. Well, I turned 55 last week.
Happy
It
birthday
fe-
for last
Thank
week.
you. Thank you. It feels very strange to be in my 50s. I don't know if you feel the same way. It's
Yeah,
very odd. It's very
yeah,
odd.
very odd.
Um, I'm 55 going on 15, to be honest, because I still do my skateboarding and my riding my bikes. But yeah, I'd say if anything, my passion for comics and comic storytelling is probably stronger now than it ever has been. We've talked quite a lot about mental health before, and when I was struggling, I found drawing was a really helpful tool. So drawing cartoons really helped give me a lift. So yeah, I kind of rekindled my love for reading comics about 5 years ago, and I've just got I'm hooked on it again now. I just absolutely love it. But I was seeing the way that cartoons could help other people, and it's one of the things I think, certainly within a business setting, is that they can help obviously bring in some humor so they can lighten up a subject. You know, we did that with some of your stuff. But I also love the way that they can break down complex subjects and make it a lot more easier to digest and to understand. I think that's one of the biggest selling points that I have for the work that I do with businesses. Is that I can take something that's quite complicated and break it down into a much more easily digestible, trying to think of the right word, just make it more easily digestible, easily accessible, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
as you're saying that to me, I'm getting that
Mhm.
stream of consciousness thing, you know, that I do,
Mhm.
Morgan. Because
Mhm.
for me, I had a really clear idea of what I wanted and the messages I wanted. So it was single images, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You did a
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
specific.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for another business, it could be, I guess, a comic strip
Well, yeah,
telling
I mean,
telling a story or giving
mhm,
certain facts that are a bit dry, even.
absolutely. That's what I do. That's what I love about it. I mean, you could take something that's quite technical, you know, maybe like some kind of manufacturing process or something like that, and yeah, and turn it into a story, into a strip of images. So my dog's just got interested because there's a bin lorry appeared outside. uh, but yeah, so I love being, and I did that when I was working with Taz.
Yeah.
We took some of the bigger concepts from her book Unleash Your Awesome, and we broke those down into 5-panel like newspaper strips, as they're known. And so we took, you know, quite a lot of heavy text and changed it into that simple image with a more like say 10 to 20 words, and just breaking down that process into an easier to understand process. Yeah, definitely.
And I guess, Morgan, people could use
Mhm.
that maybe on their social media or even for a
Absolutely.
presentation
Yeah.
icebreaker or
Yeah,
something like this.
absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the nicest things I do is I quite often get called to do live drawing at events, because it's usually good to have what they call a scribe, who sometimes literally all they're doing is just they're writing it down with a big marker. But I add to that, I do drawings as we go along. Sometimes it'll be in front of the crowd, so they can actually, and it helps. Again, it's just breaking stuff down, and it's more people engage with images far more easily than they do with text. And people probably don't even realize that, but they actually engage and understand imagery a lot more easily than they would like a big block of text. So if you do a very simple, it's like a pie chart. A pie chart is a really simple visual way of breaking down information. But yeah, doing live stuff at events really, it adds something to it, and obviously, yeah, the humor's there as well. So I love doing those. They're really great fun to do.
Okay, so let's get, whereabouts do you live now? And
Mhm,
because if anyone's listening to this, either
mhm,
live today or on catch up, and they think, I want to chat with Morgan, that could work for me, or I've got this really difficult message and I wonder if breaking
mm,
it down. So let's talk about physically, where are you based, and
mhm.
what type of investment? Because you don't want people coming to you who just want everything for free,
Absolutely.
but they need to have an idea of roughly where's the starting point in terms of investment,
Mhm.
Morgan?
So I'm based in a little village, well, big village now called Fleckney, which is where I've lived on and off most of my life. I never intended to stay here, but I just keep being dragged back in. But I've lived in and around Leicestershire most of my life. I lived in Hampshire for about 6 years. Lived and worked in Farnborough for about 6 years. But when it comes to getting work going with people, usually, I mean, it's nearly always the first thing that people ask for, isn't it? How much is it going to cost? My work starts at £100 for original drawings, and then I can estimate from the amount of drawings that people want to let them know how much it's going to cost. I think that the biggest jobs I've done really are usually around the £1,000 to £2,000 mark, but that's like a whole campaign. It's like Illustration Taz's book, because that was 14 chapters, so there was 14 cartoons to be done, and we were into more serious money. But yeah, so knowing that they're going to be investing at least £100 in their business. And the great thing is with my stuff is that it's all bespoke as well. It's actually, everything's drawn by hand. I still draw by hand. Even the digital stuff I've done for you, it's still drawn by hand as a starting point, because I like to get that flow right, and then that's sent over to you to see what you think, and then I can go for the digital stuff. The great thing with the digital is I can alter it a lot more easily. But yeah, so I don't try and put people off by the costs. I will tell them, honestly, what I think is a ballpark figure for them. And most of the time it's usually okay. I think once they understand that they're getting something that's made especially for them. And with you, I mean, I love it, the fact that you asked for the original drawings as well, which is great. And I love being able to do that. So that's a really lovely thing. I have a filing cabinet just full of envelopes that I've got all the drawings in, and keep them all filed away at home. But if people want them, that's absolutely fine, because I have them scanned at high resolution anyway. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're starting. Yeah, around that mark. Does that help?
No, I was thinking, because I think people will think, because bespoke animation online costs a lot of money, and I think that people will be surprised that your cost is so affordable, given it is original artwork.
Yeah,
Morgan, and so it's never worried me to come back to you and say, I want a Christmas version of me.
Absolutely.
Or I don't know, it could be anything really. It could be a Valentine's Day version of me. It could be anything. It really allows you to mix up your marketing and doing something a bit different.
Absolutely.
It's really so hard to stand out.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the nicest things. And again, as we were talking earlier about my style, I think my style it's quite unique now, because I have this blend of East and West. And I think because, I mean, obviously I'm coming from a comics background, but the way that anime and manga have become a lot bigger over the years, you can go into Waterstones and buy manga now. And you have a pretty good selection. And the fact that anime has got huge now, there's the films of Studio Ghibli are probably the biggest ones that have come out. There's Princess Mononoke, there's Totoro. Howl's Moving Castle was huge, and they're having big budget Hollywood remakes. I mean, when I say remakes, revoicing. So I think people are a lot more open to having my kind of art now. It's losing a little. I think in the UK, there's still a little bit of a stigma attached to comics and cartoons. They're still seen as being quite childish and not the kind of thing that you should be reading in your 50s and that sort of thing. Elsewhere, if you go to America, the American industry is just huge. But in mainland Europe as well, Italy and France have huge respect and understanding for cartoon illustration. It's incredible. It just seems to be here in the UK that it's probably not quite so well received. There is a definite scene here, but it's a lot smaller. And I think as well, that's why cartoonists over here can find it quite difficult to make a living. That's why you see a lot of original artwork being sold off a lot of the time. So, but yeah, I'd love to do more to educate people about how cartoons can help you. You know, not just from a business sense, but on a personal level as well. I think that could be really good. Yeah.
Okay, so
Mhm.
let's neatly segue then into
Mhm.
your book project. Tell us all about that.
Right. So I have written a book. They say everyone's got a book in them, and but yeah, I've written a book.
I
Hello,
love the
Arabella.
cat. I love the cat.
Hello, Arabella. Yeah, she's so talkative. But yeah, so I'm open about my mental health, and I've had my struggles, and I've had my ups and downs. At the beginning of this year, I wasn't in a good place, and I kind of lost my way for about the first 3 months of this year. Hello, Bella. Anyway, as I was slowly coming out of that fog that you get from depression, I was really itching to start drawing again, and I really wanted to write some comics again. I've got some comic projects that I'm working on that are probably going to happen next year, but I really wanted to get writing again, and I thought I'm just going to start writing about my journey with my mental health, and it just absolutely poured out of me, Fiona. I thought I'll probably start writing. I'll get a couple of pages in, and then I probably won't be able to do anything. Before I knew it, I'd written nearly 100 pages of comics, and I thought, right, okay, I've written it. What do I do now? So I started drawing, and again, it just absolutely poured out of me. I think from start to finish, the whole project probably took me about 4 months at most. And I know that graphic novels can take years to be produced. So it felt like absolutely the right thing to do. And I just let the story just pour out of me. And it's all ready now. It's ready to go. I'm just waiting for some sample copies to come back from my printer. So we've actually got some physical books to show, which is, I'm sure you know, is always a good thing to have with you. But yeah, it's just what I've done is I've taken the mental health journey and I've broken it down into like a long weekend. I go on a road trip. The book is actually called Morg, as my family usually call me. Morg Takes a Trip. And it's a road trip over a long weekend. And it's literally going from being okay to suddenly getting in a bit of a difficult situation, spiraling down because of that, spending a day or so left in that kind of limbo feeling that you can get, and then meeting someone and coming back up on the other side. So it's something that would obviously take a lot longer, but I've broken it down into literally like 3 days in this graphic novel. And I'm really hoping that what the book will do, it will help people, especially men, to talk about mental health more openly. That's the ultimate aim. If I can get more people talking about it,
Yeah, because I did want to, as you know, talk to you a little bit about that, because you've always been, ever since I've known you, which is a few years now, you do a lot of your PR on LinkedIn.
I do, yes.
That, don't you? But you are quite open about the ups and downs in your mental health. So give people who don't know yet, talk to us about that. I mean, is it, do you have any conditions or anything like that, Morgan? You mentioned being autistic, didn't you?
Yeah.
Or you referred to it.
Yeah, it's very funny. A couple of years ago, I mean, I'll get into my mental health, but a couple of years ago, I was going out one evening to see friends or whatever, and my wife had turned around, and I was just chatting away to my wife as I was going out, and she said, "Oh yeah, and don't forget your Asperger's diagnosis." And I had completely forgotten that I'd been actually diagnosed. I've realised that my mental health has been not the best for quite a long time. It's probably always been there. But realizing that I was very clearly on the spectrum was something that didn't come up until quite recently, probably within the last 10 years at the most. And that's I have bipolar disorder, and I have Asperger's, and I think I've got quite a healthy side slab of OCD as well. But yeah, it's kind of funny the way that I can forget stuff. bipolar is very odd because you can literally be down one day and up the next. It's happened this week. I had a very low day at the beginning of this week, but then bounced back up. And art has always been a part of my recovery process. So as I was coming back out of the other side this week, I started writing again. At the moment, I'm doing daily cartoons because it's a nice exercise to do. It helps with my mental health because it gives me something to focus on apart from those dark thoughts that can sometimes take hold. And obviously, it's great PR for me because I'm putting cartoons out on a daily basis now. And I've been doing this for nearly 2 months now, and I don't think I've missed a day yet, which has been absolutely fantastic, which has been great. But with the diagnosis, it was about 5 years ago when I had my really bad breakdown. I'd taken on a job that was too much for me. I didn't realize at the time that it was too much for me, but it triggered me quite badly into depression, and it became apparent that I had to quit this job. I had to stop. But what happened from the lovely knock-on effect of that is that while I was actually starting to recover, I started drawing again. I was drawing every day, all day, and listening to podcasts and just really finding myself again, I suppose. And I've accepted now that bipolar and Asperger's are very much a part of me. The Asperger's especially. It's funny how I can be very different at home as I am when I'm outside. It's sort of like if I'm at the shop, I can be very autistic because the people that come in we have a lot of people that are on the spectrum that come into the shop. So, I think if they feel they've got a kindred spirit, it really helps. But being open about stuff it's kind of at the heart of what I do. When I started the daily cartoons, I was writing more about mental health than I was probably anything else. Now I've kind of balanced it out because I think if you go on about it too much, it might be a bit heavy for some people. And I don't want to get people down, but I want them to understand what the conditions are like. So I sort of try and mix it up. I've created a fictional band now within the cartoon, my little cartoon world. It's a bit like Peanuts. If you remember Peanuts.
Yeah. Oh, we've got a comment, Morgan.
From Andy
Wilkinson. Yeah, from Andy Wilkinson. Hi, Andy. What a great way to show another angle of the struggles associated with mental health. This gets people talking for sure, which is great. That's nice.
Definitely. That is really nice. And that is nice. That's great. I mean, because obviously I communicate better visually. So if I can get people talking from what I've done, what I've drawn, is just absolutely fantastic. And if it's especially with the mental health stuff, I mean, ironically, I put one up. I don't know if you know, but it was Suicide Awareness Day on Tuesday this week, I think.
Yeah.
And I actually put up a cartoon about wanting to check out, and it's probably the most popular cartoon in terms of hits that I've had yet. So you can use something that's lighthearted and fun to talk about really, quite dark stuff. And it's really interesting to see reactions. Putting that cartoon out on Tuesday, it got shared left, right, and centre, and an awful lot of people commented on it. So it's really good to be able to use it for that. It's just part and parcel of who I am. I've accepted that now. As much as I am an artist, I'm a cartoonist, I'm also somebody who has mental health stuff as well. Yeah.
The one thing about mental health, I mean, I've been very lucky in my life, Morgan, and until I hit menopause, I didn't associate myself, apart from times of bereavement, with having mental health difficulties until I hit menopause and realised, and it took probably 18 months for me to realise that I was suffering from anxiety. In my world, it came like I suddenly got very anxious about driving, and driving has been a really important part of my life, gives you so much freedom. One thing I wanted to ask you though, and particularly for men, is how do you deal with mental health issues around your loved ones, the people you live with, your nearest and dearest, because sometimes there must be an element of guilt from you for feeling like that, but also for them not being able to stop you feeling like that, not having the answers.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll use this week as an example because I felt I was very low on Tuesday, and this is just the nature of bipolar. It comes in waves. And my wife just felt awful. She was holding my hand and talking and just smiling at me. But she said, I don't know what to say, because she knows that when those feelings, thoughts take hold, it can be incredibly hard to overcome them. I think men, especially, because there's still a little bit of that. The men are the providers, and it's kind of the caveman mentality, which I usually run in the opposite direction from. I don't particularly think of myself as being a very manly man. I'm more sensitive. I think that taps in with my autism as well. But yeah, I think the main thing that you could do, especially guys, is just talk about it. It can be really, really hard to start off with, but sometimes just actually saying, I mean, again, on Tuesday, I just told my wife, I said, I just wanted to not be here. I wanted to check out. I'm sorry if I'm mindful if that triggers anybody.
Yeah.
But just saying that actually broke it. Then I turned around and I turned that conversation into a cartoon and put it out. And that's the one that got all the, so I mean, obviously I'm very lucky that I have the art as an outlet, but for other guys, I think getting out and getting moving makes a huge difference. Being in nature. I know you put up pictures almost every day of your canal walks with your dog and everything. And yeah. I love seeing that. Absolutely love seeing that. No, it's wonderful, because I mean, I love the healing powers of nature. One of the favorite things that me and our dog do is we go for very long. We've got a lovely 1,000-year-old woodland at half an hour from where I live. And I just absolutely love it. We can drive ourselves over there. I let Breeze off her lead and she just goes absolutely ape. She'll just disappear. But they call it, there's a therapy called forest bathing.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, and it's actually being in woodland and allowing the energies that are in the woodland to reinvigorate you. And it absolutely, definitely does, yeah. So, as I say, I'm very fortunate that because I can draw, I can let it out, let all the bad stuff out. But I think actually just getting out there and moving, being in nature is just so good for you. It really is. Yeah.
So your strategies are drawing first, because that's drawing comics, expressing, whereas I might write, you're drawing, walking out in nature. Are there any other things that you use when you're having a bad day?
Yeah, this is going to sound bad. I'm a big kid. The fact that I still read comics in my 50s, but I either skateboard or ride BMX. I find the discipline of doing those, because usually I'm riding or skating on my own, and I find that the actual discipline of learning a trick or learning learning something new on either my board or my bike really helps calm me down. I equate it into going like a Zen mode. Especially when I'm riding, because it's very much, you have to really focus on what you're doing and you're moving. My style of riding it's called flatland, and it to me it's very much like it is like a Zen thing, because it's very much it's all about balance and movement around the bike. So I equate it quite a lot to like Tai Chi, you know, the way that you see very graceful movement. So getting out and doing, usually riding, is really good for me. I find that we just had,
I see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
there was a wonderful
Narjas is saying looking up at the sky.
Yeah, I had that, and again I had that this week. I had a chat with Taz, because I have a regular session with her once a month, and one of the things that she told me to do was to look up. So, you know, we're so used to, as a society, with our phones and tablets and everything, looking down all the time, looking at our phones. And she's actually saying if you start looking up and start seeing the sky, yeah, it makes a huge difference. Yeah, absolutely.
And I always feel quite calm by the sea, bodies of water. I don't want to be in the water.
No,
But
no.
the water, just the water and the sound of it, doesn't matter where the water is. It could be a river, it could be a waterfall, it could be the sea. Just adds a bit of perspective. Oh, Chris has come in. Chris who's producing this behind the scenes. I find meditation really helps, which is something the young me would never have thought I'd do, but it helps hugely.
Absolutely. I have to agree with that, Chris. I think when I was younger, I mean, I've always had a little bit of a woo side.
Yeah.
It's always been there. But it wasn't until more recently, when I've been working with Taz on her retreats with her and Asha. I use meditation a lot now. In fact, what I do when I go, well, I'm very fortunate that I have there's a skate park in my village, so I can literally walk up and I can take my dog with me. Breeze loves going up there. We were just up there this morning, actually. But what I do, we do a thing called the Dancers of Directions. I don't know if you remember that from your time with Ty.
Yes.
Yeah, do you remember?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you're like drawing a bow.
Yes.
And what I nearly always try to do is, especially if I'm riding my bike, I will do 2 or 3 rotations of Dancers of Directions just to ground myself. And it really just brings that energy down to, like, so if you are feeling upset or a bit anxious or whatever, it just helps level that energy out. And then from then out there, I'll just start riding. And the great thing is for me as well is that if I'm more relaxed, I'm more likely to land a trick first try, which is great. So I love that. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, Morgan, you and I, we could chat for ages. And I'd love to have you back. Let's just say, the tidal sound is a bit like breathing. This is Najas again. In, out, and yes to meditation too.
Definitely. Yeah,
cool.
Definitely.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So Morgan, let's roll forward then. How can people find you if they're interested and think, oh, I like the sound of Morgan, he's a bit like me, or they might be thinking, you know, cartoons might work for this project or that thing, or it might work for one of my clients. Where can people find you, Morgan?
I think the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has worked really well. I mean, I've worked hard at building up my audience on LinkedIn, and I share my art on there at least once a week, every week, if I can. It's usually the easiest way to get hold of me, because obviously the messaging function on there is great. And I've had a lot of clients actually come through LinkedIn. They've messaged me directly. Some of them have been referrals, which is great. I love getting referrals. But yeah, LinkedIn, and at the moment I'm sort of working with Facebook, seeing how I can get my Facebook vibe going a bit better, because it seems to be I get a lot of very positive reactions to my artwork. But LinkedIn, certainly for, you know, my business work is the key. Yeah, just look me up and I'm more than happy to chat. Absolutely.
And tell me, Morgan, just off the cuff, have you got, because you are quite proactive on LinkedIn, I know I am as well, but, you know, give any of our viewers either right now or if they're listening on catch up, give them a tip for, you know, why has LinkedIn worked for you? You know, how often you posting? Give us a bit of a tip.
Bit of a tip. Okay, I mean, at the moment I'm posting once a week, but keeping it regular and being and, you know, making sure that you're posting on a regular basis. If you drop off, people will forget about you. But also a good tip is be open, be honest, and always use an image on your stuff, whether it's a photo, a drawing, whatever, because people respond to images, especially if it's something cute. The amount of times people have just shared pictures of kittens because they think it's going to get, but then people will comment on their posts, you know. So yeah, I think you're being open and honest, being yourself, and remember the visual element as well, because people don't want to necessarily be wading through acres of text. But if you've got a really great image, and that's where I come in, luckily, it can really help with your reach. Definitely. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Oh, Morgan, look, it's been joyous to talk to you. And
It's been lovely
I'm
to
sure,
catch up.
oh, and you, just catching up in public. Yeah. And,
Absolutely.
and I'm sure you'll be doing some more work for me in the fullness of time.
I'm sure we will.
Just to mix up the whole, the energy. And I just wanted to say, did you see my neon sign, Morgan?
I have seen your neon sign. I'm quite envious. I think I might have to be getting some details about that, because I think my studio could do one of those.
Well, I was just thinking, can you imagine a neon character, one of your neon characters?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going back to my college days, I made a mock neon sign. I got loads of plastic piping and I filled it with paint, so it was all coloured up. So I actually made a mock sign of one of my characters. But yeah, oh, you got me thinking now.
I know. Yeah. Oh, and Andy's just saying, super interesting. Thank you, Morgan and Fee. Thank you, Andy.
You're so well. Thank you, Andy.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Morgan.
You are so welcome.
And thanks so much for spending a bit of time on this Friday afternoon.
Absolute pleasure.
I hope that we've given people another idea around different marketing. Got them switched on to thinking about how cartoons might work for them in their business, and and just expanded their mind when it comes to how art and business aren't that too far. And it's not that far apart, is it?
No, it's not. It's not.
Business is an art. Art is a business.
Absolutely. There's a something I go on that I say everybody has a creative skill. You know, I had an old friend of mine who was a musician, and I was very envious of him because he could play music, but he was incredibly envious of me because I could draw, and we'd have this ongoing battle. But I say everybody has a creative talent, whether it be bookkeeping, video, whatever. If they can do it and they do it well, it's a creative talent, you know. And I think if people clicked into that way of thinking a bit more, I think that we'd have a lot more happy business owners.
Yeah, I totally agree. But, like you said, you've addressed some really deep issues just in our 40-minute chat. But with cartoons, we've shown that you can add light and shade to things.
Absolutely.
And absolutely. Anyway, I don't think we need to labour the point. It's been joyous talking to you, Morgan.
Likewise.
Lovely
to see you.
Oh, and you. And thank you to your cat for her musical accompaniment for all of this time. And thank you to everybody who's joined us today, whether you've been watching live. We've tried to respond to comments, and honestly, if you put a comment in and you're watching us on catch up, don't worry, I will try and respond as quickly as possible, and I'll get Morgan to keep an eye on it too. Please join me next month. If you want to find out about me, I'm at www.scottmedia.uk. I'm on LinkedIn like Morgan, or you can hop onto Facebook and join Fiona Scott's PR tribe. Thanks so much, and thanks, Morgan. Until the next time.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.